we have seen very little of the folks who actually live day by day in these societies. We've seen military personnel, we've seen police personnel, we've seen people responding to emergencies, etc. We haven't seen the guy who would spend his time at Red Robin or whatever today, too much in there. And one of these is a genuine post-scarcity society. I mean, there's, like Jacob pointed out, it's not really posted because they still need all that exotic matter. That's a bottleneck. I'm like, okay, Jacob. But for all intents and purposes, this is a genuine post-scarcity society. And it actually has an economy that's based around esteem, which is a cyber currency kind of thing, but it's very real. And then there's admin, which is in the throes of really becoming a post-scarcity society, and which is suffering. Part of the problem they're having social disruption as people who, I need a job, and you don't have a job anymore, kind of thing. What happens with them? What do they do? And we haven't really done that yet. I'd like to touch on some of that going forward, because one of the problems that you have with a post-scarcity society is that people's motivations shift radically in some ways. Okay? And you come up against the question of, okay, what percentage of humanity is going to feel an inner compulsion to be doing something that is producing something in a society where anything they need materially is already available? Okay? We have a little bit of that, Chris Kennedy and I do, in Into the Light. And we've come at it in a slightly different way from the way that Jacob came at it. There is a genuine government currency in Into the Light, but it's based on the fact that the government owns all of the deep space industry. Okay? And that's the basis for a hard currency. The currency is pegged to the productivity of the infrastructure. And then individuals, like for example, car dealerships, okay, they have their own designs that are printed out, and you buy the design, they own the design, that kind of thing. So and they also have this little problem that they're worried about the giant galactic hegemony that's going to come and squash them all. So they're kind of like, well, okay, we may be in a post-scarcity society, but David killed off 3/4 of the human race before that happened, and we're building this thing. So trust me, we'll be busy for a while, kind of thing. So it's like, I didn't know how to do a post-scarcity society, so I killed everybody, and it works out just fine.
Less people to worry about.
That's right. Me and Thanos. I mean, we got this now, sorry, Jacob. After I wouldn't let you kill a universe.
It's all right, David. It's all right.
Senior partner privilege. But the problem, it's kind of what I'm looking at here a little bit, where you're talking about. There's a gorgeous line that Jacob has in there, where our guy from the 21st century uses the expression, "There ain't no such thing as a free lunch." And Raybert and Philo kind of look at each other and say, "That's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard." I said, they're from a pre-scarcity society. You got to cut them a little slack here. Kind of thing. I'm like, okay, that was neat. But you one of the things you have to look out for, and I see this over and over again in books that make it into print, and also things that I watch for in collaborations, is metaphors or analogies that no longer fit. Okay? And I had one in here. I was like, I had somebody say, okay, next time, I'll buy the beer. And Jacob said, well, you're talking about a post-scarcity society. They wouldn't be saying that. They'd be saying something else. So we had to come up with something else for him to say. Usually it's me doing the, you don't go there. Okay, or saying no, they wouldn't call them sailors on starships. They would call them spacers. Okay, or something else. And it's a tiny thing, but it's one of the things that you learn to look out for. And it can add a lot to the flavor of the society when you create a new metaphor or a new analogy for them to make the same point, but using reference from their social historical experience rather than ours. And there's also an element of a true post-scarcity human society, or one in which the singularity has actually been achieved. I have doubts about the achievability of the singularity, but in either of those cases, you're almost talking about an alien species, because the constraints they face are going to have such an effect on their external drivers and how that's going to impact on them as social organisms. And there's a point at which you have to establish points of contiguity for your 20th century reader with this 30th century society. By and large, I think we've been very successful at doing that. And I'm really, really satisfied with it. But there is that element of you're now writing about it. I think it's easier for us in some ways when we're writing about admin, because admin is from an alternate history. Sysgov is basically our history projected forward 1,000 years. Okay, that's our base society. That's, kind of thing. Whereas Sysgov grew out of the Hitler assassination in 1940, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in some ways, it's almost easier to write about admin than Sysgov, because for your reader, that's the alien society. Okay, it's Sysgov where they have to see the downstream connectivity to where we are today to them. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't know that I'm.
It has to be a logical progression.
Well, it has to at least be a sustainable progression, an acceptable progression. And I think it's easier for us to put our heads into this is an alien society when we're writing about the admin than it is when we're writing about Sysgov. Or it is for me, anyway. Jacob's like, well, David, my mind isn't split into 17 different personalities like yours.
No comment.
He only
No
has the two.
See, I actually only have one series now. Skippy has a series, and George has a series. But,
oh, is that how this works?
that's how it works.
It's funny, they don't get credit.
No, they don't. Dominant personality steals all the credit.
All the paychecks go to the same place.
Suck it up, Skippy.